As night fell, there was no moon in the sky, only countless stars scattered like silent witnesses. In the distant mountain valley, the flames of the battlefield had died down, with only the scent of smoke and burnt gunpowder lingering in the air. Just a few hours ago, the sky had been filled with the sounds of gunfire, the echoes of explosions, and the cries of the dying. Now, there was only a fearful and unsettling silence. A small squad, just 25 soldiers, had entered the depths of this valley. Their mission was to destroy a secret enemy base. The orders were clear: attack, destroy, and return before dawn. But they never came back. At daybreak, other soldiers went out to search. They scoured every corner of the valley, turning over every rock and bush, but they found no bodies, no bloodstains, not even their weapons. All they found were some scattered boot prints that suddenly stopped in one place as if the earth had swallowed them whole. This mysterious disappearance spread panic through the cantonment. In the rules of war, everyone is prepared for death, but to vanish into thin air like this, no one could believe it. The commander himself led the search. He and his trusted officers combed the area, but each time, the result was the same: nothing. It was impossible to send a message to the soldiers' families. How could they say their loved ones were gone without any proof of their deaths? Days went by, and rumors spread through the camp. Some said the enemy had used a new weapon that could make people disappear instantly. Others claimed the valley was under an ancient curse. Still, others whispered that the soldiers had simply fled to escape the war. But the commander knew those soldiers were not cowards. They were brave, responsible, and ready to die for their country. So where did they go? At night, the sentries began to notice strange occurrences. Unfamiliar sounds would drift from the valley, sometimes a muffled scream, sometimes a sorrowful melody. Sometimes it felt as though someone was watching them from behind the bushes, but when they approached, they found nothing. One night, a guard swore he saw one of the missing soldiers standing clearly on a distant rock, but when he called out, the figure vanished. Other guards reported seeing similar sights. This only heightened the fear. Were they dead or alive, and where were they? After that night's events, the unrest in the cantonment reached its peak. While the strict rules of the battlefield maintained order, everyone was secretly shaken. The commander couldn't accept that 25 of his soldiers had suddenly disappeared into thin air. He sent a report to headquarters, but the response was a clear order: this is a military secret. No information is to be leaked. The soldiers are missing, but do not release anything to the news. Continue the search, but do so silently. This instruction only added to the confusion. If a new enemy weapon truly existed, it needed to be known. But why did headquarters want to keep it quiet? For the next few days, the search continued. Special forces deployed drones, dogs were used to track scents, and even local villagers were questioned. The result was zero. Drone footage showed a thick fog settling over the valley for days on end. And inside that fog, there was no sign of any living creature, not even the sound of birds. It was as if the entire place was a kingdom of death. One night, another strange event occurred. 2 guards were on patrol. Suddenly, they saw a line of 25 figures slowly approaching. The sound of their boots and the clatter of their guns were clearly audible. The guards shouted with joy. They're back, they were alive. But as they drew closer, the figures started to blend into the fog. In a moment, they all vanished. The guards fired their guns in a panic, but the bullets hit nothing but air. The next morning they swore, we saw them, they were there, they are not dead. The commander didn't wait any longer. He wanted to see for himself what was happening. Under the cover of night, he led a small team into the valley. All was silent except for the chirping of crickets. Suddenly, the air grew heavy, and the temperature dropped sharply. Everyone stared in awe at the huge rock standing in the fog. Strange symbols were etched on the rock's surface. They looked very old and related to the war, perhaps the symbols of some ancient tribe. The commander had a feeling that this place was tied to a curse or an ancient, secret mystery. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed around them. A few familiar faces slowly emerged from the darkness. The missing soldiers, their eyes were empty, with no expression on their faces. It was as if they were neither living nor dead. One by one they came forward, but after a short distance they faded into the fog again. The soldiers, terrified, fired their guns, but it had no effect. Only the echoes resonated through the mountains. The commander's heart went cold. He understood that this was not an ordinary war. Within it lay an unknown mystery, beyond the reach of human reason. After that, the frequency of paranormal events in the camp increased. In the middle of the night, patrolling soldiers would hear their names called out in the voices of their missing comrades. Sometimes, a soldier's tent would suddenly have a wet boot print inside. One night, an officer went missing, and his tent was found with nothing but a handful of wet mud. As days passed, the mystery deepened. The commander decided he had to uncover the secret of the ancient symbols and the fog. The next morning, an old man from the village was brought in. He was the only living elder in the area, almost 90 years old. There was a heaviness in his eyes, but his voice was filled with a strange firmness. The commander asked him, "What do you know about this valley? Something strange is happening here." The old man remained silent for a long time. Then, he slowly began to speak. This valley was once called the Valley of Blood. Hundreds of years ago, there was a kingdom here, where an entire army of warriors was completely wiped out in a battle. Their bodies were never found. Folk tales say their souls are trapped under this ground. They never found peace. If anyone enters here at night, they are drawn into their ranks, stuck in a state between dead and alive. The soldiers listened in shock. The old man continued, "When I was a child, I heard that the rocks standing here are their tombs. Those symbols are not just scribblings, they are oaths. The warrior's vow is that anyone who comes here will not return." The commander tried to find a logical explanation. "But our soldiers are warriors. They are used to battle. Why would they be drawn in?" A strange look flashed in the old man's eyes. "Because they are warriors too. The dead warriors want the living warriors in their ranks. This is the curse." As he finished speaking, an unnatural chill descended upon the air. The soldiers felt as if invisible beings were standing around them. That same night, another strange event occurred. The commander had a dream that he was standing on a battlefield. All 25 of the missing soldiers were there, but their eyes were empty, their lips moving as if trying to say something together. The sound became clearer. "Release us, T. Release us." He broke out in a shriek. He woke up and saw, indeed, wet footprints of mud inside his tent. The commander was now certain this was not a delusion. It was real. The soldiers were not dead, but trapped in a terrifying world. The next day, he called the old man again. He asked, "Is there no way? How can we bring them back?" The old man sighed. "There is a way, but it is a terrible one. Deep in the valley is a stone called the Warrior's Gate, and if you break it, the souls will be freed, but those who go there may never return." The commander was in a dilemma. He knew this meant a sacrifice, but not bringing the soldiers back meant giving up on the enemy, and more importantly it meant tarnishing the army's honor. Finally, he took a few volunteers. He prepared everyone for the final mission. When night fell, they set off into the depths of the valley, surrounded by fog, an unnatural coldness, and strange itchers. Suddenly, familiar voices floated in the air. "Go back, go back," as if the missing soldiers were warning them, but they didn't stop. They walked until they reached the huge stone. Strange symbols were carved into the stone, and scattered around it were old weapons, rusty shields and broken spears like artifacts from a centuries-old war. The commander raised his weapon. The soldiers beside him struck the stone together. At first, nothing happened. Then suddenly the valley roared, the fog thickened, and a cry of agony rose from the ground. Cracks appeared in the stone, and from those cracks, a light like fire burst forth. For a moment, everyone covered their eyes. When they opened them, they were stunned by the sight. Standing before them were the missing soldiers, but this time, Their eyes were not empty, life had returned to them. They were panting and sweating, as if they had just been in the dark for a long time, and had suddenly been brought into the light. The commander's heart was filled with relief. He shouted, they were back, but just then, the ground broke open. A strange, dark current erupted from inside the stone. It spread across the sky, and from within that darkness, countless shadow figures emerged, the souls of ancient warriors who had never found peace. They screamed, you have freed us, but we are free now. This land is ours. The soldiers fired, but the shadow figures couldn't be stopped by bullets. Instead, they began to possess the bodies of the living soldiers one by one. The commander understood this was the final act. The darkness suddenly came alive. The rage of 1,000 years was released all at once. The mountains shook, thunder roared in the sky, and the shadow figures came forward one by one. They were semi-transparent with ancient helmets on their heads, busty swords in their hands, and eyes that burned like fire. The missing soldiers stood behind the commander, trembling. Their leader whispered, "Sir, let us stay here. We have to be the ones to finish this war." The commander's heart ached. He knew what this meant to them. Though these soldiers were alive, they had already been prisoners of death's shadow. There was no way back for them. He shouted, "You are brave. If you stay, we will return with the rest." But the soldiers laughed. A strange, peaceful laugh. "We have always been here, sir. Just let us finish our fight this time." The commander hid his tears and gave the order to retreat. He and his team left, and behind them, the missing soldiers remained, who once again took up arms to stand against the ancient warriors. For the last time, the commander turned back. He saw his soldiers standing between light and darkness. Their figures were slowly fading into the fog. Then there was silence. The next morning, the valley was empty. There were no bodies, no blood stains. Only fragments of the broken stone and rusty weapons were scattered around. The army reported to headquarters, "Mission complete. The soldiers have not returned." But that night, the commander could not sleep. He clearly heard voices floating on the wind. "Sir, we are here. We have not lost." Years passed. The war ended. The army won many battles in its history and lost many, but the mystery of that valley remained unsolved forever. Some say that at night, you can still hear the sound of boots, the noise of battle, and the clatter of swords. Locals don't go near that place even from a distance, and those who know keep silent, because some mysteries are born to remain a mystery. Many years after the war ended, the commander retired, but his sleep was still restless. Sometimes, he dreamed of the missing soldiers standing in the fog, saluting him. One day, a journalist came to him. The journalist was writing a book, Unsolved Mysteries of the War. He had heard the story of the valley and wanted to tell the truth. At first, the commander didn't want to say anything, but after the journalist's repeated requests, he slowly revealed the story. And from there, a new chapter began. The journalist tries to go to the valley. Locals try to stop him, knowing that the sounds of battle can still be heard at night. The journalist is joined by a historian who has researched ancient symbols and the marks on the stone. According to him, it is not just a curse but a kind of ancient pact. It is gradually revealed that the soldiers who went missing are still there but trapped in time. They are neither dead nor alive, trapped in a strange cycle. The journalist and historian decide they must reveal the truth, but when they enter the depths of the valley, the curse's repetition begins again. At night, they see the souls of modern and ancient soldiers standing together, some seeking release, some seeking revenge. The journalist finally understands that this mystery is not just of one battle, but a continuation of a war that has been going on for centuries. In every era, some soldiers have vanished this way. The journalist is now in a dilemma. Should he reveal these truths, or should he remain silent so that the curse does not spread more terribly? Plot continuation until the end of the story. Chapter 1. The Journey of the Journalist and Historian. Many years after the war, a young journalist wants to write about the mystery of the lost soldiers. He goes to the commander and gets some leads. The commander warns him, "If you know the truth, your life will never be the same." A historian, who has been researching the ancient symbols, joins the journalists. They secretly enter the valley. Chapter 2. The Cursed Night of the Valley. At night, they see the modern soldiers and ancient warriors fighting in the fog. Even though he is afraid, the journalist documents everything with a camera, a diary, and an audio recorder. The historian analyzes the symbols and says, "This is not just a curse. It's a kind of pact." The ancient king's soul once swore that no matter what era warriors came to this valley, they would never return. Chapter 3. The Truth of the Missing Soldiers. The journalist suddenly sees the missing soldiers are still there. They are trapped within time in a strange cycle where the war never ends and death never comes. The soldiers plead with the journalist, "Free us, end this torment." Chapter 4. The Way to Freedom. The historian says, the only way to release them is to destroy the symbols. But destroying the symbols means breaking that time loop, which would not only trap the soldiers, but also anyone who entered the valley. The journalist is in a dilemma. Should he free them, or should he quietly run away? Chapter 5. The Sacrifice. Finally, the journalist decides. He breaks the symbols. In an instant, the fog tears apart, and the ghostly battle stops. The missing soldiers vanish with a smile, their souls finally released, but the journalist and historian cannot get out. They are trapped within time, and no one ever finds them. Chapter 6. The Final Ending. Many years later, someone else will come to that valley again. They will find the journalist's camera and diary, which contain everything that happened, but the last footage on the camera will show the journalist and historian standing in the fog, slowly disappearing. With this final message, war never truly ends. Some soldiers fight forever in the invisible chapters of history.